Are you on with your,
I'm trying to connect to the internet. I've been having problems with it.
okay,
Even the last meeting, I had to do a hotspot.
okay, oh no, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Trying to pull up your presentation. That's where's it here? Well, probably, I think, do we have, I'm trying to see if we have quorum. We have 3 members online and 3 here. Yeah, so actually we
Yeah.
do. So we actually can
Mhm.
start. Okay.
Should we click record?
It's already live.
Oh, it's
here.
live?
Yep.
Okay, because I
Um,
remember seeing the record. Okay, cool.
But I don't see the recording thing. Yes, you're right.
Record on the cloud?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay, yeah, 1 second. Let me just see if I can get the Greg's presentation up first.
Okay.
Because Greg will sort that out.
Mhm.
Got it on there.
Oh, this meeting is
Oh,
live
whoops.
streamed.
Did I
Yeah,
not?
with maybe with the little mouse. I'll do it.
Can you tell I'm very tech savvy?
Okay, cool. Thank you, Rabia.
Oh, goodness. Oh, what is this? CV12M. Here, let me actually just forward it to that email. All right, we can go ahead and get started while I sort this out.
Okay,
We can
cool.
save time since we have it happening. So, you want to go ahead and kick it off for us? That's okay.
Sure. Okay, so welcome everyone. Should I click on record?
Oh, yes, please press record.
Yeah. We're just trying to coordinate here. Don't mind us.
Yeah.
Recording in progress. Our meeting has begun. It's 7:11 p.m. Welcome everyone to the Housing and Human Services Committee. Just reminding myself it's the 2nd of November. Okay, so welcome. Let's start with introductions. I'll start first. Hi everyone, I'm Emily Marte. I've been a community member, community board member, probably for like 2-ish years. And I've been part of Washington Heights for like 30 years. Happy to be here. I'm the co-chair or assistant chair to Marielle. You can go ahead, Radia.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Radia Barnes. I'm new to the community board and I am a long-term, lifelong resident of Washington.
Oh, I mean, you can
Yeah, sure.
introduce yourself.
I'm Greg Silverman. I run the West Side Campaign Against Hunger. I also live in Washington Heights for the last 4 years, but I was previously in Hamilton Heights.
Oh, awesome. Welcome.
No, he's just sharing the screen.
And while Marielle's figuring this out, how about some folks on the computer introduce yourselves? Maybe Marshall?
Okay, let's try it. Let's see.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Marshall Vanderpool. Was formerly the first vice president of Dyckman Resident Association. I'm a public member. I've been affiliated with the Housing and Human Services Committee. Wow, thinking about maybe 6 years now. And I'll land my plane here. Thank you.
Thanks, Marshall. Landing plane. Tanisha.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're just doing introductions.
Oh, hello, Tanisha. What else I'm supposed to say? Community Board 12 member. How y'all doing? That's all I got today.
Yes, whatever you'd like to say. You, Indiana.
Hi, good evening all. Indiana Porta. I am also a board member of Community Board 12 and really excited to be here. Sorry I couldn't be there in person this time.
Yeah, no worries. It's cold outside. Right. And I do see a couple of other people. I guess we could get started with or I'll let Marielle introduce herself now that she's,
I think we've got it.
yes, I think we've got it. We have a little presentation, yes.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Emily. I'm Marielle Ali and Service Chair for the Housing and Human Services Committee. Thank you for joining. Yeah, so I just wanted to note, I guess, before we officially start, just I don't think so. There has been a change to the agenda. I don't think it's been reflected with what has recently gone out or what's printed and for those in person. So I just want to make it clear for the record. So we'll have a presentation by Greg from Westside Campaign Against Hunger. And then we are meant to have a presentation by Robbie Parks, who's with Columbia University. Robbie's going to talk a little bit about a research initiative that they're working on regarding kind of heating temperatures in apartments and things like that. And then we'll kind of go into the rest of the agenda, which includes our monthly updates from elected representatives. And today, we're fortunate to have members, our colleagues from Councilmember Shana Abreu's office with us. So then we'll kind of go through the rest of the agenda. I just wanted to note that that change there. So I think I can go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to try now. Should be able to, let's see. This is me testing tech. Yes,
You've
yes,
done
yes,
it. You
I've
have done it.
Should I face you guys or should I face the people? Well, I mean, it's gonna see me.
It's gonna see you. I think it's like really cool. So however you'd
Yeah,
like.
I know the owl. Okay,
Let me just, you want me to kind of open it up for you?
yeah.
I can't see here. We can-
Maybe you could
Yeah,
hide
then hide
this.
this, exactly. Yeah, oop, I cannot find that. Let's see.
Or through here, the three dots, and then it says hide floating meeting control.
Ah,
And then,
there we go.
I don't know what.
Let's slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
Beginning or something. There we go.
Ah,
Teamwork makes the dream work. Greg, over to you, please. Thank you for joining us.
I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
just nod and I'll press next.
yeah.
Well, as I said before, I'm Greg Silverman. I run the Westside Campaign Against Hunger. We're a 44-year-old anti-hunger organization that was started based on the Upper West Side in the late 70s. And I'm just going to go through a little presentation of sort of what we do, what sort of state of play, and how we're trying to be supportive in and across New York City. So next slide. So I'm sure everyone on this committee knows, right? Like, the state of the world is not good. Many people thought in the time of COVID that it was some of the worst food insecurity, but in some ways, when you look back, it was some of the best things that actually happened when in terms of like federal safety net and supporting people. And as our elected officials at the highest levels have destroyed that safety net that was proven to be really helpful in lifting people out of food insecurity, we're seeing some of the highest rates of food insecurity in decades, all across New York. It keeps increasing as we're seeing, like, especially for seniors, since we got out of the pandemic. Many of our minority groups are actually at twice and further beyond twice the levels of the mean across the city. So what we're seeing, and I'll get into that, is just increased elevated rates of hunger, and there's a few reasons for this, right? Like, what we're seeing in our work is rent, reduction in government support, increasing food prices. Every one of us knows, because we all eat food at some point of the day, that it doesn't matter if you buy it at a store, you buy it at a restaurant, wherever you get it, everything's gone up really in a massive way. And that's especially with community members and fixed incomes that have not elevated at the same rate as the inflation on their pricing, that it's really difficult. We do work across the city, and I'll get into that, but at one of our locations where we started in West 86th Street, as you can see in this graph, we saw in August, for this most recent data, 6,700 families, which is the largest number in 44 years. Normally, and this is not just at my organization, but across the city, any pantry, summer is a slow time, traditionally, and the numbers for food insecurity, people coming for emergency food, elevates to the peak, which is November. holiday time, Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
I'm dressed like this because I was giving out turkeys today.
Mm.
As the beginning of the month, we had 630 families show up today, which is a record. Yesterday was our previous record of 44 years at 586. Every day, it's just, we keep saying it's a record and we sound like a broken record. People are like, it can't just be another record. I'm like, no, it can. Each and every day, the situation is getting worse. And we're gonna spend, a big part of my job is raising funds because the city and the state and the federal government are not stepping in any way in this. So we know we're gonna spend another $1 million this year on food alone. Like, food banks are not solving this issue with what they give away for free, right? This is gonna be an issue that is much more of a policy issue than what anything emergency feeding could possibly do. If you go to the next
Mhm.
page, right? So we've been around for 44 years. What we're really known for, what a lot of people think about when they think of Wixta, I'm realizing I have 2 slides on Wixta. Is about 25 years ago, we created what's known as one of the first choice model pantries in America, and we've pushed that for a long time. My background is as a chef and restaurant owner, and I previously worked more federally on these issues. And, you know, when I've been at the organization 7 years, when I first got there, we were giving out 20% of our food in the form of fresh produce, and we were considered best practice. Considered amazing. I, unfortunately, had been working with the First Lady Michelle Obama's team on national initiatives on making sure people's plates filled with fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables. So my thought was, we're doing a terrible job. I don't care that we were considered best practice. We can do better. So as we are now in 2023, we give out 52% of our food in the form of fresh produce. We think that's not phenomenal. We think that's what the standard should be. People should have access to the healthy, culturally relevant foods that they want, not just whatever is handed out by the food bank networks. At the same time, beyond giving out great food, every one of our customers is in our database, and we have a whole team that does access to benefits. So we would never hand out food without connecting with people to find out, no matter what their situation is, what do they need at a city, state, and federal level? If we can be helpful, we will. If it's a referral, you have Sean Abreu's office coming. Every single month, we are there distributing food with his office, doing benefits enrollment. That's just what we do because it's what we think is most impactful for our community of customers. So we turn to the next slide. Yeah, so we have about 30 sites across the city where we distribute. About 80,000 people get food from us throughout the year. So we have, how we operate is through a lot of community partner sites. And our customer base for 44 years has been coming from Washington Heights, Inwood, South Bronx. People come down the subway lines to 86th Street because the quality of the food drew people to that. And we wanted to flip that model and say, why are we dragging people from all over the city just because the food is good to the Upper West Side? So we started these community partner sites in this very general vicinity. Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation is one of our biggest distribution sites. El Nido de Esperanza, only a couple blocks away, is a big partner site. School in the Square, Dominican Women's Development Corporation, a couple New York Presbyterian sites. Mama Tingo's site was a big site during the Head Start during the pandemic. Robert Jackson distributed through a lot during the pandemic. So we have a lot of sites in this very tight vicinity. I don't actually know the exact geographies of CB12, but I'm sure like those are mostly in there. And so we've just continued to find more distribution points and more amazing partners. That's what we like doing. So oftentimes, if you went to any of those sites, you would never think it was a West Side Campaigning Against Hunger. It's not our distribution, right? We're really good at getting good food and benefits to groups who are good at their community work. So we just partner up. We're not trying to be showy about that. We just want to make sure people get the great product that they want. So if we flip the page, yeah, so this is a little map that shows sort of all the community distribution points we have across the city. Most of them are in Northern Manhattan. We do a big partnership in New York Presbyterian where we're also not just expanding community partner sites, but moms who have kids 0 to 5, sort of WIC age moms who screen positive for food insecurity at New York Presbyterian are referred to us, as well as seniors who screen positive food insecurity, who then can get that same food that we deliver to their home, delivered to their door. And they can choose not to the product, but they can choose the categories. Does someone want, cow dairy? Do they want alternative dairy? Do they want vegetarian protein? Do they want animal protein? Fresh produce or a mix of fresh and canned? So people can sort of tailor what they want, and that'll get delivered. They'll get pre and post emails, or not emails, text messages saying, just like if you're getting anything else delivered, like your delivery will be here in the next hour, will you be home? So we've been really pushing that as a model because we think, right, our customers deserve what anyone else who gets groceries deserves, like amazing customer service, because they're just human beings who have busy lives and we want to bring food to them as opposed to making them get to the food. And so this has been really a big push for us, and it's where we see a lot of growth across the city, that you're going to see a lot more of this home delivery, linking it up with people's SNAP benefits. Our benefits enrollers now call people up. They can follow up. You don't need to come in to go do those benefits. We'll do it over the phone with someone. If they want to show up in person, great, but it's your choice. It's all about choice. We just want customers to choose what they want. So if you flip to the next slide. So at the same time, one of the things, and this is my background as a chef, restaurant owner, I never liked what my wholesalers got me in terms of my pricing. I think they always gave a high pricing. So I got together with 7 of the other largest emergency food providers in the city, and we created an sense of buying group and an advocacy group. So we share all of our information, all of our data, because we're not in competition. We're just trying to help people get access to healthy food. So we drive down prices to get better product for our customers. We do a lot with New York State farmers to sort of get the farmers upstate to be able to have great product and let them know, like, we're going to buy this large quantities of food and we can get it to you. And it's just another way that by trying to pull it together, we can get better pricing. And our elected officials all know about this because we sort of use our voices as well to express issues and concerns, such as, if you heard of the Emergency Feeding Assistance Program, EFAP, that's now called Community Food Connections. That program for 20 odd years provided food for pantries. Until this past year, not one penny of the 22 million at the time dollars that was in that program in the city was allowed to be spent on fresh produce. It all only could be used for shelf-stable produce. So I was named one of the co-chairs of the mayor's transition committee on food policy, and he said, what do you want to do with this? I said, well, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to change the EFAP program to make sure there's a choice. And there's a choice of what? I said of fresh produce. I'm not saying everyone needs to give out 52% produce like we do, but I want every pantry in the city to have the access, to have the dollars to say, I want to get, whether you want corn or cucumbers or collard greens or kale, I don't care. It's your choice. But you should be able to do that and not just have the same product range. And so that became law last year, and the RFP that went out forced that. So you're seeing more fresh produce across the network. And so we pushed that together as a roundtable. So we've been based in the basement of a church on 86th Street, St. Paul, St. Andrews. We're not part of the church, but we're based in it for 44 years. And we bring in about 80,000 pounds of food into the basement of that church every week. Churches were this kind of church, 150-year-old church, was not meant for this kind of warehousing. Amazing community space, but not meant for this kind of warehousing. So we started looking for it. We realized for the amount of food we're distributing, we needed a better space. So what's that?
Oh, no, it's just a little comment.
So if we go to the next slide. So we started looking, we had some support from different colleagues. all over the place for a place that would be to house, we have 30 staff, full-time staff who work for us. That would be the more base of operations for our team, our benefits enrollers, our food team, mostly our warehouse. And so we kept looking, and so what we found was, if folks know the old post office on 180th Street. So we've put a 20-year lease on that space, the entire first floor. So that space will be about 2/3 warehouse and 1/3 administrative offices. We took over the space in January. Go to the next slide. I'm sure it has a picture, right? So you can see the old space, and then below, like will be a very in-person space for engagement across the city. This is not going to be a pantry where we will distribute food directly, because there's so many amazing partners up here, and part of the reason I wanted to come here was to, we're trying to let as many groups know, like who are we're meeting with, for example, Claw. It's Yvonne, I think it is, the CEO. She's coming up on Monday to the space, because we want to figure out how can we be helpful. We're not trying, there's so many great groups up here. This is our base of operations for our work across the city, and we want to just be supportive. Who is there that needs more product? We were talking to Catholic Charities on 183rd, seeing the line there, and from our perspective, we're really good at getting fresh produce. Can we get more for people? Do they need more? What do they need more? How can we be helpful? So this space will be a location for our staff. It's also going to be a location, just like at 86th Street, where we assume we'll have about 50 people volunteering every day, coming in groups, sending families, community members, customers who want to help get food ready to be able to distribute out across the city. And so we're super excited. We're just waiting on we're finalizing fire safety permits, the FDNY. We should be open for business, to start bringing food in by December 1. So we're very close. I mean, if you walked in, you'd think it's completely ready to go. So I have the next slide is sort of a generic slide, but some of the things we are thinking a lot about is volunteers. So wanting to have community members, especially here up at 180th, will have lots of opportunities. We do a lot with schools, religious institutions, elected officials are all coming through on a regular basis. We have 50 to 60 volunteers every day at 86th Street. So we'll do the same thing, usually in the mornings. Getting any thoughts as you think about, we've done a lot with the community board on the Upper West Side related to advocating for things like the Community Food Connections program, and sort of partnering on policy, those kind of policy initiatives. If we can be helpful, if there's things you need us to do, or we can push our roundtable network across the city, we want to be helpful and push that out. And obviously, you'll be seeing all of our partners are distributing turkeys this year, starting today, I think, or yesterday we started this year for the first time. We'll give out a mix this year, about 8,500 turkeys. 2,500 is our first time giving out pork shoulders, because we did some surveying and a lot of folks were like, actually, I don't like turkey. I'd much rather make pernil. So where people are enjoying that. And we also give out gift cards for people who obviously, people who are vegetarian, or I already have a turkey. You want a gift card to bring to a grocery store because you want to purchase other foods, or it doesn't matter. If you say, I want to purchase, candles and cake mix because my kid's birthday, it doesn't matter. We just want to make sure people have an enjoyable holiday season. So we'll be at United Palace with Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa. We're bringing an extra 250 turkeys to that event.
Nice.
We'll have another extra, I think, 150 turkeys with Manny Los Santos. And then Nimic and everyone I already mentioned, all will be giving out either turkeys or gift cards. So we're very, we know this is a tough time of year for so many people. And so we try to raise a lot of money to buy a lot of turkeys. And that's just something we're ever thankful to do. So if you go to the next slide, just the end slide, but happy to answer questions. But I just want to, really for us, it was introducing ourselves. We work with a lot of community groups here in the neighborhoods already, but I've never sat down with the community board up here. So we're just thankful to be able to chat with you and start a relationship.
Sure. So thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us. And obviously this is recorded as well. And so we'll make sure, that members have an opportunity to view the presentation. I have a few kind of questions and comments,
Sure.
but I want to open it up first to fellow committee members and anyone that may have a question first or a comment for you.
I mean, mostly it's just the comment. I came in late, but I hear the depth of what you do, and it's not just tossing this here and tossing that
Yeah.
there, which is good on its own terms. I mean, appreciate that. Are you looking to connect with additional Washington Heights and Inwood community groups?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, so far, we're talking right now for expanding distributions with New York, I always forget how that's, New York Love Kitchen in Inwood, Walter Sotelo getting involved, we're getting involved with Cloth. But we already work a lot with Nimick and El Nido and New York Presbyterian, multiple sites. And so, but the more the better. We just want to let people know, because we also understand we're all about sharing and collaborating, but sometimes other people are fearful of, like when I built the Roundtable Collective, some people are like, do they really want to share data? And so the first thing I had to do was give out all my data. I was like, here's every invoice I've ever had in a document. You want to check prices? Like, I don't care, because all I care about is the mission. Like I always go back to, I was a chef restaurant owner, and all I care about is making sure my customers have the best food and the best experience. The only difference now is that at Whiska, my organization, we don't charge people, right? We're like, we want people to do the same thing. Go home with amazing food and have a great meal. And we know that that doesn't just mean the food, right? Because you can't go home and have a great time if you're like, you don't have stable housing, you have multiple jobs that don't add up. So we want our benefits enrollers to help people with all these other pieces, because the food gets folks in the door for help, but people usually don't know all the resources that they need and they're able to get. So yeah, the more groups we can talk to, the better.
I mean, my world away from here is a world of senior centers. And connections are likely to go through Nimick or Presbyterian, but if we could also connect directly and
Sure.
figure out a way to do that, I'd love to. do
Yeah.
that.
And Maria from Nimick Lizardo is a new board member of Whiska. We're good friends because we just do it. She's
We
the
could
mayor.
do better with-
I mean, in my mind, she's the mayor of Northern Manhattan. So,
Yes, I know.
yeah.
How about any of these smaller food pantries that may not have like the great food and things that you have? Would you work with them? I know there's like a lot of churches that have kind of like their own little pantries, and they're kind of struggling a little bit. They don't have as great of a selection that they may be able to.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we do not want to make people, we're not planning on opening any of our own pantry here. We want to connect and support them. And it might be when a pantry's small enough that they might give out 100 to 150 families once a month. From our quantity we work with, it's not that difficult for us to, is it like, oh, they need six mixed cases of produce, let's get them then. Like, so if we can, I don't know, if after this we can have conversations or emails of whatever the best way to connect to as many pantries as we can, we want to be helpful in the plan.
You're on 180th, is your new location?
The old post office,
Oh,
which most likely New York Presbyterian is going to take the second floor for an early childhood center. So,
we're less than a block from here.
which seemed,
Fort Washington, it's basically at 181st and Audubon, but what's now the main entrance is on the Audubon side.
okay.
309 Audubon.
And do you get food from New York Common Pantry?
I
'Cause
gotta say, I'm
Okay.
personally, we're part of a group of 3 senior centers. I'm a little more focused on one of the others,
okay.
so I don't know the detail.
Because we keep talking with other pantries about like how we, if we're in certain neighborhoods and they're in certain neighborhoods, they're like, oh, it's efficiencies for people. So, but we'd love to talk to senior centers. So,
And we have a couple people online that have questions, Marshall and then Indiana. Marshall, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I first wanted to make a comment. Somehow the post office, that sounds like a great repurposing of that space, considering that it's already probably has the loading bays and the area to handle produce and product like that. But my question is, with the choice element that you brought into your demonstration, um, how does that work as far as the distribution? I mean, maybe I missed something, but uh, at at one point you said you weren't planning to have a real pantry at the 180th Street location. Maybe you could just go back over some of the distribution points, and I'll land
Sure.
right here. Thank you.
yeah, this is sort of our warehouse hub, right, at 180th, and we have a number of partners already in Washington Heights that we will working with them to expand their services. So if someone wants, in a sense, food from us, they can go to a number of the community partners that already exist that they're already distributing food with us, but they're sort of closed sites. Like if every other Friday at Nimick, there's a food distribution, but you have to be on their list. So our goal is that we will, as customers come to our site, we'll put them on other organizations' lists to give them access to more distribution points that we serve already around the city. As well, we want to we've talked to the folks at the Fort Fridge. They pick up at 86th Street once a week. My preference is they pick up 5 days a week at 180th, and then we keep that fridge stocked fully. Like it should be, you should never go to that fridge and which it usually is, it's empty. Like it should be stocked with product. And so if we can help them do that. So we're gonna, in a sense, you could just imagine it as like a lot of satellite sites that already exist in the neighborhood. That we will try to work with them to service more people in need. So in some ways, we're kind of we'll be like a wholesaler in the neighborhood for partners who are already doing great work. We don't want to get our job, we know what we're really good at is partnering and distributing produce. And we don't want any pantry to not be, or it doesn't usually not even a pantry, like a senior center or a church who's really good at knowing their community. They might not need to be really great at distributing produce, but if we can get them that, then they can focus in on what they're great at, which is building community. And we just sort of are a tool for that group to do a better job. Is that helpful?
No, that's great, and that fits. Help brought my understanding to it. Thank you.
And you actually also answered my question, which was just whether you guys had contact information for the guests who came in, and if you were sharing that across organizations, where if somebody has experience assisting in other areas, right? Like they may be able to connect with some of the partner organizations. So that's great.
So I'll just say, we put all of our customers are in our Salesforce database. Their records are private, right? Our data that we share across in our roundtable is mostly purchasing data for saving money. So it's not about individual customer records. That's a different ballgame. But we do referrals, and like Nimick's a great example of, they don't need us to do benefits enrollment. They do an incredible job. They're way better than us at benefits enrollment. But El Nido de Esperanza is more than happy they don't have benefits enrollers. So they'll put their people's names in our database, and then we'll track them. If they want information back, we can do that, but it's all based on what the customer, okays in that situation.
That's great.
Any other questions? One or two. Thank you again, Greg, for taking the time. I mean, it definitely sounds like there's a couple of ways that we can work together, you know, as a committee and a wider community board, with your organization. One is, we know our community quite well. We probably can help come up with a list of, you know,
The small
the
pantries.
smaller, you know, whether it be a church or, you know, a community organization doing this, and can certainly, pass those details on. I think the bit around, you know, how we can work together in terms of advocacy as well, certainly helpful. And, you know, maybe it's that, you know, quarterly, you can come or someone from your team give a quick update on how things are, and how we can support and we can kind of remain in touch. Happy to, you know, I think for all of us. One of the things that I know the committee, we're very focused on housing, but like you mentioned, there's obviously so many other things, and it's really good to hear that where you're using food as an entry point, but recognizing that it's connected to so many other needs that, you know, our fellow New Yorkers have. I think what would be nice, as you mentioned, this is obviously a time when there's such need, and there's a lot of kind of big points of, you know, kind of giveaways and so on and so forth. Is there maybe like a list or something that could be compiled, at least for what's happening here in Washington Heights and Inwood, that we could maybe share on our email list, as, you know, through the community board, to let the community know these are some opportunities, you know, to come and get a free turkey or pernil or, you know, whatever the case may be, to support our fellow New Yorkers.
Let me work on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I know that's one of the reasons for us. We know that once we open the doors, like, just to be honest, right? Like, people are gonna come and say, oh, I've heard of West Side Campaign Hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get food here? And for us to, we're not gonna say, oh, yeah, sure, go to 86th Street. Like that. Like,
Yeah.
our whole purpose is not to make people take the journey. So we want to get a document together once we have these key partners.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, okay, on every other Friday, you could pick up at Nimick, or Cloth is doing this, or the community fridge is here. Like, here's all the distribution points we work with that we're helping out. So,
Exactly, kind of a resource guide. I think that'd be incredibly helpful. Sure.
we can do that.
Great. Any other questions, for Greg this evening?
Do you know when you said you were doing one with De La Rosa and Los Santos? Do you know when those are?
For the turkey distributions?
Yeah.
Carmen's at United Palace is on the 21st. I think that's a Tuesday from 3 to 5. She's gonna be announcing that. And Manny De Los Santos office, they just reached out. There's like 2 dates the week before. It's either like the Wednesday or Friday, but we can get you the dates of Manny's. Yeah, I think it's like, is the Wednesday and Friday, the 15th and 17th? Something like, but they were just asking us which day this afternoon, so. Okay, but I can get that. But right now, for example, at 86th Street, every single day every single day for the month until Thanksgiving, we're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every week. We're distributing, people get their normal monthly food distribution, and then they get their turkey, pernil, or get carved with it. And all of our distribution points aren't here. We were just delivering that today.
I know you say you mainly have volunteers, but are you gonna need new jobs to cover?
We have been hiring, and we've hired 3 people recently, all from Northern Manhattan. One who lives in the Bronx now, but born and raised in that. But the 2 others are walking distance to the warehouse. We've hired a director of food, a receptionist who's actually in charge of all the sort of reception for all of our work, and another benefits enroller. So it's partly, there's a bunch of staff our staff come from all over the city, and they come into 86th Street, but a lot of them live in the Bronx and live in Washington Heights and Inwood, so they're very excited for the shorter commute of being up here. And for us, we drive a lot to Hunts Point to be picking up food, so it's a much better distribution commute for us as well. So.
Thank you. And I know, on just picking up on the volunteering point, kind of once that's set up, we'd certainly welcome more information on that, because that could be something that we can share amongst community board members. Maybe it's something that, a couple of community board members can go one
Yeah.
afternoon and help and, so on.
And we do this a lot, right? We work with New York Cares
Mhm.
as well, so it'll be on their website where people can sign on, but also if the community board said, oh, we want to have a volunteer, we have meeting space there, so we're gonna obviously we have meeting rooms that people can use, so if we were like, oh, the community board wanted to come and volunteer and then have a sit down to discuss something, like, we can make that kind of stuff happen. We do that a lot at our other location for different groups.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate
you
you taking
all.
the time.
It was nice to meet
Really,
everyone.
be in touch.
I'll say hi and I'll even.
Take care, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have monthly meetings, so.
All right, so we're now going to move on to, we're gonna have Dr. Parks join us. And yeah, Dr. Parks, you're online. So over to you. I know that you're going to go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and share a little bit more about your work at the university.
Hi, yeah, I'm Robbie. It's nice to be with you tonight, albeit remotely. I have a couple of slides, if that's okay to share. I don't know if that I currently need to be able to share the screen, but yeah, I'd love to.
One second.
While that's going on, I'm a assistant professor at Columbia at 168 at the medical campus. And I focus a lot on climate change and how that affects people's health. And I want to introduce a little bit of a project which focuses on indoor heat in the hot and cold seasons. So I'll just very quickly go through that, and then I'd love to have any feedback and recommendations and interest in participation if that's possible. That would be really an ideal outcome. So yeah, this is just me, and I'm really, I'm a researcher, but I'm a researcher in public health, and so public health is inevitably and should be really focused on solutions to improve people's lives. And we know it's getting hotter. I'm sure even from our memories of this summer, we know it's getting much, much hotter. And we know really that when we think about temperature, which we see on the TV, when it goes to triple digits, that's talking generally about outside temperatures. And we have very little data about how hot indoor temperature gets. And most people do want to spend their time indoors when it's really, really warm. And just before I go into that, I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of things. I'm a researcher, but I also try and engage in sort of outreach via things like Science Friday. I was on the Weather Channel talking about other research. And I could very happily talk about the climate conference, the UN climate conference, which was last year at Egypt, this year in Dubai. But those are sort of the really big, large scale things. But really, I want to focus on the local scale, working in 168 Washington Heights. So I was just going to skip through this bit because I just want to get to how climate and climate change, both variability, like how weather affects our health, but also how long-term changes are going to impact our health. And so when people think about climate, of course, we're thinking about melting ice caps, but really when we all live in the city like we do, we're thinking about what's happening when it floods, what's happening when temperatures are getting warmer and warmer, right? And so whatever you think about climate change, when it gets too hot, we don't really like it in New York City. People get annoyed, people get, behave differently, but also it's actually very dangerous for our health if we're particularly vulnerable. And it's particularly vulnerable for our health if we're indoors and we have no recourse and no way of getting cool. And so like lots of us may have AC units, but maybe some of us don't. And we know anecdotally that if you don't have AC and it's in the middle of the summer, that it's really, really hot indoors if you don't have your windows open. And even if you have your windows open, sometimes it could still be crazy. It's even with a fan. So fans, when it's super warm, are just blowing hot air around. That's not necessarily helping at all. And so there's so many ways in which hot temperature can affect our health, but there is actually very little evidence about how hot it gets indoors, especially in New York City. And so that's kind of what the proposal and the project I want to talk to you a little bit about. Those are just some recent examples of how hot it got in the past few summers from the New York Times. We're talking about triple-digit summers being very, very common, especially even when it's not summer, like last Saturday was very pleasant in some ways, but also kind of weird that it was so hot. Now, just talking about heat and how people are vulnerable to heat. Of course, New York City is a city of inequality and inequity, and so in many ways, the most vulnerable areas really track with historical racism, the way people have low income and means, and some of that really is related to a lot of places and neighborhoods which are amazing neighborhoods, but without necessarily the infrastructure, people without electricity means to even if they have AC. We all know electricity is getting much more expensive these days, especially if we have to pay for it to cool ourselves, which most people want to stay at home when it gets ridiculously hot. That's what we found. And so this is kind of from a survey we did a few years ago during the COVID summer of 2020 and 2021. Most people want to stay indoors when it's very, very hot. Now, of course, you can talk about cooling centers. You can talk about going to the mall or going to Target or going to somewhere like that. But really, if it's hot, you kind of just want to stay indoors. And how do we stay cool? Well, usually that's AC. Maybe in the past it's been via fans and things like that. But electricity costs have got higher. So even if we do have AC, the cost of it is going up. And I'm sure we've all noticed that. And AC prevalence by socio-demographics, people like how people identify as race and ethnicity, that plays a factor in at the population level, the rate at which people have AC. And of course, it's related to how much people have in terms of spare means to afford electricity and to buy AC units. But like I said, we all know that's getting more and more expensive. And so there's variation in how people have AC units and how much electricity they have to use to spend on the cooling mechanisms. And so, this is a project where we're trying to find participants who are interested in understanding how their indoor temperatures are in the hottest days of the year. And also because we know that winter is really seriously coming very soon, to know, because there are local laws about how cold indoor temperatures can get, but that's usually a function of how successfully running the gases, and gas, as we know, is differently organized in terms of how we pay for it in New York City compared with electricity. So we have these temperature monitors, which are very small and unobtrusive, and we're a research team, and we're trying to find participants who are really, really interested in monitoring and participating in understanding how these indoor temperatures, how high they can get. Because, for example, when you see on the news, it's 100 degrees outside, and you feel like it's hot inside. Do we know how hot it is? If you have AC unit, great. If you don't, then we're trying to drive policy to improving evidence base, like many other good researchers, but to try and understand what's going on with temperatures out indoors during the summer, and can we drive a policy to talk about a maximum indoor temperature by law? And of course, then we go into how we would fund that, and then that's another question. But without the data, we actually don't have anything in terms of, we have stories, and stories are important, but you need data and stories about high temperature indoors to be able to drive policy change. This is a group of great researchers and students that we've got across HEAT-C, Columbia University, and UC San Diego. This is a partnership across several cities. But it's a small project. We're looking for 100 participants. We're trying to find people interested over November, December right now. and then you get the temperature sensor by one of our lovely master students who will come and visit you and install and have a brief demographic survey so that we know, where the sensor is, and we'll register you. Nothing else really happens apart from this temperature sensor. Just sit one in the living room, one in the bedroom. We are going to collect this data over the next year, and then I would love to come back periodically over the next year with my team as well. The great team I have working with me to report what's actually going on and what we find, because I think what we're going to find is in the winter and in the summer, it's probably going to be quite shocking to some people about how cold it really gets in some particularly vulnerable apartments, and how hot it gets in the summer too. And so if you can think of anyone who might be interested, and you think, could really respond to this, so people who want to know how hot and cold it gets in their apartments and feel like they're vulnerable to those temperature shifts in the summer and winter, those extremes, I'd love to hear from you, because we're currently trying to find homes for these sensors over the next few weeks and months. And so, I'm sure maybe there's some questions. I'd love to answer some questions, but really this project is aimed at trying to characterize what's going on with extreme heat and cold indoors in New York City, especially in northern Manhattan and the South Bronx. So yeah, I'd be very happy to answer your questions now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Parks. I see that one of our committee members, Michelle, has raised her hand, so I'll turn it over to Michelle, and then I'll kind of check here for those in person if there are any questions. Michelle?
Sure. Thanks for your presentation. This is really interesting. I myself have a biostats degree, so super interesting to hear your presentation. I am interested in who is eligible to participate. Would it be somebody who do you need to not have AC to participate, or can really anyone participate?
We're not selective over the people who are participating, if that answers your question. I mean, obviously, in some ways, if we can characterize a spectrum of vulnerability, that would be useful. But we're never going to turn anyone away. We would just want participation, because I think even in people who don't regard themselves as vulnerable, I think we'll be surprised at points about how hot temperatures get in apartments before AC is turned on. And so I think, if you or someone isn't necessarily the sort of most vulnerable in society, we would still really love that participation.
And do we get access to our own data if we do?
Yes. So you own the data for sure, but you also get access to it, and that can be via an app on the phone with these sensors in real time. But we would obviously want to collect the data too, and that would take place via Bluetooth at some point at the end of the heat season, but at the end of each season. But you would have full access to your data in real time via smartphone. Okay.
So the sensors are communicating with your smartphone via Bluetooth and maybe uploading to some server that you have on your side?
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, the sensor would be connected to your smartphone. In terms of how we would collect the data, we wouldn't have any connection to anything in your apartment. What we'd have to do is come at the end of the season and then make a very quick visit to upload the data to our phone or computer via Bluetooth. So there is no remote teleconnection via. So there's no transfer of data outside of your apartment, if you like.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And I had a suggestion, because I know we had some folks, if other folks remember the building number, we had some folks come in and talk about how their landlords were not properly heating their apartments, or we had people who live in these buildings who come over and over again complain about the lack of maintenance. Those could be interesting folks if they would participate. I don't know if anyone still has their contact info.
I think I do.
I'd love to know.
Yeah, that could be interesting, because they're it could be helpful for them for reporting violations.
Yeah, because obviously you know, even if people report violations, they're not always honored as well. And so we want to, because 311 records are sort of public, we want to compare the actual violations with the 311 calls too. So I'd love if you had some details you could share with those people, because I think that they're exactly the kind of people that would benefit from this.
Great, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Michelle. Dr. Parks, before I turn it over, because there's a couple of other members who have their hands raised. Before I turn it over to them, I think helpful if you have some sort of flyer, kind of advertising
Yes.
can be shared, so you can send it to me. And we'll make sure that gets shared, you know, kind of quite broadly across our email list, but also on kind of, you know, community Facebook groups, so on and so forth. I think
Absolutely.
I saw Indiana's hand. So Indiana, over to you.
Thank you. I had just one question that expands on the question that you were just asked, and then a second sort of procedural question. So the first one is, you said that you're, you know, welcome to taking anybody. Do you have any kind of guidelines of the unit size, or, you know, like if I live in a studio or if I live in a 1-bedroom, does that make a difference? Does it make a difference what floor you're on, anything like that? And then the second question was, if you could just please clarify, like, let's say that I'm participating in the study and I get hot. Do I have to like wait until it gets to a certain temperature, or can I turn on my AC whenever I want? Or are you looking for folks that don't have AC units in their apartments? Thank you.
Thanks for your question. I appreciate it. So, of course, you know, we want people to maintain their comfortable temperatures if they have means, of course. So we don't want the presence of the sensors to affect anyone's behavior. And so if you want to turn on your AC, I think that I would encourage you to, or whoever participates, to do that as they would normally do it. And our aim is to get a temperature sensor in a bedroom and a living room or front room. And if it's a studio, of course, that's going to be the same room. But the whole point of what we're trying, and in terms of the floors, as we know, like there's a gradient of temperature in the cold seasons in winter, usually to do with how heat is distributed by gas burning. And so, you know, we are looking for a variety, but it essentially is going to be a random sample, because we're trying to find a variety of environments, and we will characterize those, and we will record, for example, if it is a 1-bedroom, which floor it's on, what type of building it is. But there's no it's all completely anonymized, but that information will be important for us. But we're not going to be selective over whether you have a studio or 1-bedroom at this point. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Indiana. I think I saw Marshall, and then after Marshall, Tanisha.
Yeah,
Marshall.
just a hey,
Oh,
Dr.
Tanisha.
Parks.
You can
Professor
call me Robbie.
Parks.
Yeah, you can call me
Okay,
Robbie.
I was just wondering though, what kind of sample size are you aiming for? What's your goal here?
Yeah, so we've got 200 sensors, and because there are 2 per apartment, we're trying to find 100 apartments where we can characterize indoor heat across a range of kinds of people, and largely focused in Northern Manhattan and South Bronx. And the goal, as you know, have correctly pointed out, maybe that's not completely clear, but you know, we are a research institution. So our goal is to find out and understand in temperature terms how hot or cold apartments get in the extreme seasons, winter and the summer. And why is that important? Well, there is a minimum temperature law in New York, but there's no maximum temperature law in New York. And so if there is, and perhaps should be, a maximum temperature law in New York, we need some data to show that indoor temperatures are frequently going above temperatures which are way too hot for humans to be comfortable in. And how do we do that? Well, we need some evidence base to do that. And currently, there really isn't any evidence base for how hot it gets inside apartments. There's localized information, and we all know from our own experiences, if we don't turn AC on or can't turn AC on or can't use a fan, it gets really hot. But to put a number on that, it hasn't generally been done in a large scale way. So we would hope to expand this as the seasons go forward and as the years go forward. But currently, we have 200 sensors that we're trying to get installed for that purpose. I hope that goes some way to answering your question.
No, very, very much so, and thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, sir.
Tanisha, over to you.
Yeah, hello, Robbie. Thank you for your presentation.
Hi.
I'm hearing that it's about the environment and how the environment affects us. I myself live in a 100-year-old building. And some people who live in these older buildings don't have air conditioner. So, a lot of people can't afford Con Ed and can't afford an air conditioner. So we want to hold space for that. But my thing is it just about the temperature? Because there's a lot of things that affect the temperature. Like for instance, in a lot of these old buildings, when the heat does come on, sometimes the walls start to sweat and it creates mold. So will there be anything around that? Because that is also environment, and that is a problem that a lot of us have, where we're literally wiping down our walls because the black mold is coming from, not enough ventilation, the way the old apartments are made, where, you know what I'm talking about, when the heat is too hot and the walls start to sweat and then it's mold, is there going to be a component to that, or is just about the temperature? Because that is, because of temperature and, the heat or not heat.
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, thank you very much for your question. Of course, to be brief and frank, our main focus is temperature. The sensors do have a component, and we will be measuring humidity as well. And humidity will be indirectly related to that. So in some ways, it could go to answering that question about how humid it's getting as a function of the heat causing moisture to seep through walls. And you're quite right. Mold is one of, in terms of driving asthma rates, the presence of mold is really a key driver for that in terms of the negative effects on our health. So, but just to be frank, our focus is primarily with temperature, but I think you raised a really good point for future work. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. And Dan, I see your hand again. Is that another question?
Yes, just a really quick follow-up question. And I'm assuming the answer is no, but is there any preference to how many people are residing in the apartment?
No, we would, minimum one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great. Can I check if there's anyone here in person with questions? Emily?
Yeah, hi. So thank you so much. This is an amazing study. I know that there's other studies that are also going on that may complement it, but you're definitely going to be it's all intersecting, because I know right now we Act for Environmental Justice, they just put up a sensor in my apartment to measure indoor, outdoor air quality. And temperature is also involved in that, because I see that whenever it's hot outside, that the air quality changes. So same here with Tanisha's comment. I know that you're definitely going to find out some different information depending on the type of building, because we have these pre-war buildings that have these set up radiators that they just impact the way that anyone breathes, like it is for me today, which is why I have a mask on, because I can't breathe cold air now, because the radiators just completely took out all the moisture from my esophagus. So then I just get a whole sinus situation going on. My apartment is way too hot right now. So I have to open up the windows, and now the money's going out the window. So it's you're definitely gonna see something more than just like climate change in the external, but also inside these buildings and how they manage with these temperatures. So I'm really happy that this is going on, and I hope that you guys, like, just a comment, that you get the variety of buildings, these pre-war buildings, that you get these like new luxury buildings, because they have like the setup ACs and all that stuff, or like the central air or the central heating systems, the HVAC systems and how old they are, and all the chemicals that they use to, like, you know, the fossil fuels or whatever the heck is used to heat up or make a building cold. Like, I hope all of those things are taken into account when you're doing this study. That's it.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you. And I'm sorry to hear that your health is being affected by temperature indoors, especially with the radiator. And in some ways, you raise a really interesting point, which is independent of climate change, or whatever you want to refer to. But sometimes the hottest people are indoors throughout the year is actually in the winter, because landlords are worried about violations, and so they just blast the heat on. And so, I think there is an element of how to be sensible with heating in the cold months too. And so, I think one of the things we talked about is how surprising it might be to find how hot it gets in apartments in the winter too. And I think that's sort of the opposite problem. But, too hot is just as bad as too cold. And they're different sensations, but they're both bad for your health. And so whenever that occurs, we want to know about it. So I think I appreciate your point.
Yeah, and I could share the contact also with on WEAC for Environmental Justice, because you could just like present at one of their meetings. They have monthly meetings, and they also have people that live in like the NYCHA buildings, just so that you get like a bigger variety of population in Upper Manhattan.
I appreciate that. I would, and just, in that particular point, absolutely, I would appreciate a contact. We have worked with React in the past, but we would love to refresh that. And just as a general thing, I would love to be able to follow up with people, and I would love to know how to do that if people are interested in this and potentially participating. I would love to know how best we could do that, because I'm available, and our students will be delivering in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you, Robbie. I just want to check, are there any other questions for Robbie? Indiana, is that another question, or is that your hand from before?
No, sorry, I forgot to put it down. Did it go away?
No. Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries, Robbie. So thank you so much. Clearly, you're showing your contact information on the screen. So I encourage everyone to kind of jot it down. Let's certainly stay in touch, Robbie. Again, if you can share a flyer with more information that can be shared kind of broadly, we can support with that. Thank you.
I'd appreciate that.
For sure.
I'll be sure to follow up. So thank you, and I wish you a good night, and great to meet you all.
Great. Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to quickly shift to an update from Councilmember Sean Abreu's office. I know that we have Oliver on the line, and thank you, Oliver. I know you have to go soon. So thank you for kind of staying on for a while to kind of speak with us. Over to you.
No doubt, no doubt. Mariel, right? Is that correct?
That's it.
Well, thank you all. Just want to start by saying thank you to the panelists, especially those conversations and the demonstrations were great. I know Chef Greg isn't on anymore, but our office is extremely just grateful for the kind of work that they've been doing with our office. And so with that being said, I'll start off with some of the updates, beginning with the right to counsel. And as you may all know, funding legal service providers in our Right to Counsel program, which offers free universal legal representation to low-income tenants facing eviction in housing court, is one of the Councilmember Abreu's top priorities. And in a difficult cycle where many programs were cut, the Councilmember was able to secure $20 million this year for the Right to Counsel, and baseline on another $20 million annual annually for RTC from here on out. And so this funding is very important because it can only keep providers afloat for so long. And so the council member has been pushing, as well as the Office of the Civil Justice, to slow down the pace of evictions in housing courts and fighting for better contracts. And so moving on to the topic on zoning text amendments. And so the funding fairness in our legal system is half the battle for solving our housing crisis. The housing supply has lagged far behind the housing demand and has reached a breaking point. And so the council member will be closely reviewing zoning text proposals and assessing the impact on our community. Moving on to the very important topic on the migrant crisis. So over 126,700 asylum seekers have come through our city's intake system since the spring of last year. And so the council member has been actively organizing supply drives for arriving families, and has been supporting schools that have absorbed children and their families. One of the ones that has been a large hub for that is the Bloomingdale School on the Upper West Side. And so last but not least, the Councilmember Breu has multiple pieces of legislation that he is hoping to pass before the end of the season, starting off with the water bottle bill. And so he has introduced a bill requiring professional and collegiate sports venues to allow fans to bring in reusable water bottles. It received a hearing 2 weeks ago, and a number of environmental groups testified in support. This bill will not only create uniform policies across our city stadiums, but it will mitigate single-use plastic production and pollution, sort of creating a mindset of plastic waste reduction and lower costs for the fans who like to attend these events, where much of the plastic that is being used is being produced and polluted into our environment. And last but not least, on the end of legislation, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene has a backlog, and so the Councilmember Breu introduced a set of bills that would expedite the backlog of background checks for childcare providers. And so this backlog is making staffing really tough on our daycares and driving up costs for parents. So it's an important issue for us to address, and the council member is working on that. Again, thank you all. Thank you to the committee. Thank you, Marielle, for inviting our office. As always, please reach out to our office about anything. We are now open to 6 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so thank you all again, and have a good night.
Thank you so
I
much.
will have to get off, but I'll drop my email in the chat and our phone number in case you guys want to reach out.
Okay. I know you have to go. I don't think there's a hand anymore.
She took it off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. No, we'll certainly follow up. Obviously, a lot for us to kind of take in, and can see some points where other committees, for instance, can possibly support, particularly kind of the water bottle bill and so on, and the expedited background checks for childcare providers. That could possibly be something that Youth and Education can take forward and support. Thank you. Super helpful to hear that. I'm happy to hear about the right to counsel. As you know, our committee penned, thanks to Jay, a resolution on that. So good to hear that kind of has passed, and the council member was able to secure that amount of funding.
For sure. Would you like me to send you the talking points to your email? I can send them.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, no, that would be really great. Thank you.
Of course,
and obviously,
no doubt.
as I mentioned, happy to have you and anyone from the office join us monthly for a quick check-in and an update.
Yeah, for sure. Going forward, if you just send me the links, you have my email, and I'm more than happy to join.
Sounds great. Thank you, Oliver.
All right.
All right. Okay. So I think Oliver was the only representative from the electeds joining us this month, but I did want to, if it's okay, provide just a quick update on a conversation I had with a staff person from Congressman Espaillat's office. I don't know if you recall, we had Lori join us last month. It was longer than last month. And this is actually with Espaillat's legal counsel in Washington. And so he talked a little bit more kind of just federally, kind of what our congressman has been doing. A lot, and I'll kind of, we'll need to kind of put this together. But he, for instance, recently wrote an op-ed on TPS. He also did quite a bit in September, actually, the Expand Emergency Housing Act, which would expand the federal community block development block grant program to allow for more federal funds to go towards things like asylum seeking housing, services and so on in cities just like New York City. It was very much kind of like from the federal perspective, but he did connect me with other members of the team that kind of work on the issue more locally. And so that's something that we'll follow up with on so we can get kind of some of those details that we had asked for. So just wanted to share that with all of you. I guess the next thing would be probably moving on to new business. I'm just wanting to check if anyone has anything for new business. No? Okay. I have one item. So I think it's. Okay, 1 second, Indiana, if that's okay, just let me. Thanks, because before I forget. So I did want to share this with all of you, and I'll make sure you get this via email. So December 2nd, it's a Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Fordham Law School. This is the location on by Lincoln Center. So West 62nd Street. They will host their annual West Side Tenants Conference. And so it's like a whole day thing, all about kind of housing, and kind of advocacy and stuff like that. I'm not sure if there's a fee for it. I haven't looked, but I've heard it's really good. I have not been, but we'll try to make it this year. So just wanted to share that with all of you in case you're available and want to attend. And I'll make sure you get the flyer for that.
Mario,
Yes.
just a double check.
Mhm.
I'm assuming the fact that you have it here says that Washington Heights and Inwood tenants are welcome at something called West Side.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of, yes, exactly. It's called that, but my understanding it's completely open to kind of anyone in the city to attend and participate that kind of works on housing or is interested in it. Yes.
Much as we love the West Side thing against Hunter.
Yes, exactly. Indiana, over to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to share something that came up in my other committee. I'm on public safety, and yesterday when we met, we had a representative from the fire department present, and we hadn't had them in a couple of meetings, is my understanding. And I had asked her if there was like any way that somebody who has a disability, for example, I'm a wheelchair user, if we can if there's any way to flag either for the area like fire department, or if there's stickers or something that we can put on our doors or some way indicate that in the event of a fire, we cannot get down. And they didn't have an answer on that. And they said that they would get back to us next month. But I would love to also share that information with this committee as well. So I just wanted to relay that was something I threw out there, and we'll report back on next month.
Thank you for that, Indiana. What's interesting is that I actually, yesterday, I sent an email to Eliasar asking, because Jumir and I asked about it in one of the executive meetings, and I said, now's obviously, we have a lot of fires in our neighborhood, especially with, the winter coming around. Has FDNY presented? And he had responded no, and then he responded an hour later, kind of a little bit later. Actually, they just showed up. So unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I think that's definitely. It's unfortunate to hear that they don't have that, and that's clearly a need. I wonder if there's some work that we can do together with the Public Safety Committee. Is it, see what they kind of come back with, but is there an opportunity, for some joint advocacy? I'm just kind of thinking out loud. But happy to
that would be great. Even at even just a training, right? Because I became a wheelchair user recently, and I had a friend who actually raised the issue. I was going to set up a headboard in my room, and my bed comes up against the window, and he's maybe you should think about not doing that, so that if there's an emergency, you might be able to break the window or get, have you thought about this? And I really hadn't. And I'm given all the fires and how all that happens, as it gets colder, I thought it wouldn't hurt to ask. And I don't know if they don't have anything or if she just wasn't aware of what resources they had, but it's certainly something I'd be interested in helping work on.
For sure. Let's definitely pick that up offline and figure out, how to take that forward.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Big time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on new business? Nope. Okay. Old business?
I think we have like budget items, that's what I saw.
Yes, exactly. Hold on, wait, that's what I wanted to talk about briefly, but I don't know what happened here. There we go. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have two items for, well, actually, there's one other thing for new business, apologies. More so of an update. So you will have seen the old agenda or the first iteration of this month's agenda included presentation by HPD on, so, and I just kind of wanted to update you what's happening. They will, actually come to present in December, but just wanted to give you all a quick update. So 4095 9th Avenue is a site that was identified by the Inwood rezoning. And so it's going to be a mixed, right now it's a vacant area. And I'm trying to pull up the email that they sent me with more information, but it is going to be, or meant to be, a mixed use site. Here we go. Okay, yeah, it's currently a vacant lot that was previously used as a parking space. It's a proposed development again that came out of the Inwood rezoning. It will include 100% permanently affordable housing, community facility space, and public waterfront access. And so they reached out to us because they will have a request for proposals in the spring. And part of that request for, or that process, is to, one, get input from the community board as well, in terms of how they do that. So it would include things like tabling, possibly a town hall. So what do we as a community want to see in this building, but also what kind of developers they should be working with, and kind of some suggestions as they help shape that. So just wanted to kind of share, they'll kind of come to the committee in December, kind of talk that through, to have a full conversation with them. Wayne and I and Catherine, we have a chat tomorrow to kind of also talk about the land use bit. Richard, please.
Just a thought, I just looked on the map just to see exactly where that's located. You may want to bring transportation into that discussion too.
Okay.
The street infrastructure in that particular location looks difficult for a large development.
Helpful to think about. Thank you. Thank you. I'll definitely flag that then for Debbie.
I mean, it's essentially, from what I can see, just on a quick look at the phone. It's east of Broadway, roughly even with Allen Pavilion and the NYP. But it's a block east of Broadway with some very narrow, not very well planned streets connecting there. There is a school in there. It could easily make sense, but it's a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's super. Didn't think about that. Thanks for that thought. We'll make sure Debbie's aware as well. Marshall?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but could you repeat the address?
Sure, it's 4095 9th Avenue. So this is between West 218th Street and West 220th Street at 9th Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Like a lot of other things happening up that way, there's nothing residential close by, right?
Yeah.
So it's new turf in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, as I mentioned, tomorrow there's I'll have a conversation with Catherine and Wayne from the land use perspective, but we'll also make sure to bring in Debbie, thanks to your suggestion, just to make sure we kind of can talk about it. Again, they're going to come to the board, or at least the committee, in December to kind of have a fuller conversation, but good for us to kind of get our own ducks in a row, so to speak, for that. So just wanted to flag that for all of you. And I guess within that, the other point, this will then kind of lead into old business, is around, there's a bit of us going back into everything that came out of the Inwood rezoning. and taking a look at where some of those projects are. I recall we did a few years ago. And I don't know how much follow-up was done or not done in terms of things that relate to the remit of this committee. There are actually quite a few, I recall. And so that's an exercise that I think we could also kind of think about and look at and see, okay, what has been done? Has there been follow-up by the relevant agencies, so on and so forth? So just a kind of just putting it out there as something that we can work on.
I'm sorry, what has been done?
In terms of the Inwood rezoning, kind of what came out of that, yeah. And then the other old business item is this very similar kind of work on the budget items. We started, as you know, we kind of did all the capital expenses and the capital requests and the expense requests. And so now, before kind of next year sneaks upon us really quickly, start kind of having those conversations now with the relevant agencies. And so there's maybe something, maybe you and Emily, you and I can kind of get together and kind of divvy that up and then identify kind of members of the committee who want to support with some of that work as well. To do kind of follow up and stuff. So yeah. Anything else for old business? Okay. I see something from Michelle, still working on scheduling the BRC visit for November. Yeah, so thank you for following up on that, Michelle. Super helpful. I know it's slightly challenging because obviously people work during the day and I don't recall if they were kind of offering times during like the work week and stuff. So we'll kind of follow up with them accordingly. So thank you for that. Anything else? I don't think I see anything else. No. Okay. Would someone like to adjourn the meeting or put a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay.
Go ahead, Richard. Say the words.
Say the words.
I move that we, as the CB12 Housing and Human Services Committee, meeting in the 11th month of 2023, adjourn this
So
meeting.
Yes, that's so official.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's 8:36 p.m. Thank you, everyone. As always, wonderful evening. Take care. Bye.
For me. The screen.